Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us with another Fortify presentation. Today, our plan is to go over our Fortify integration with Visual Studio and our integration with the Azure DevOps pipeline tool. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the Visual Studio IDE toolset. Now, with the Fortify plugins, we've made them available within the Visual Studio Marketplace. So once the desired plugin is installed, you will be able to leverage them under the Extensions tab within Visual Studio. Now, with my example here, I have three different Fortify plugins. The first is for our SaaS-based solution, Fortify on Demand. The second would be for our on-premise deployment, which I plan to go over today. And the last is our Fortify Security Assistant tool, which is a complementary plugin that provides real-time feedback as developers code within their IDE. The Security Assistant tool is available not only in Visual Studio, but also available in Eclipse and IntelliJ for Java and .NET based applications. Now, when utilizing the Security Assistant toolset, one thing I like to let my clients know is this is in no way a replacement of a full static analysis tool, because the Security Assistant tool is doing more of is checking more of a subset of issues within the code base and not necessarily doing a full comprehensive scan that the plugin above does. Now, as we take a look at the Security Assistant tool, one of the first things you would want to do would be to analyze the solution. Now, this ensures that it reviews the code base that has been previously written, but it also enables the real-time feature to kick in. So as you code moving on, if there are new issues that have been identified within your code, they would be listed under this Security Assistant tab. Now, as we review those issues that have been currently identified, you would see over at the left that this issues carry some of the color codes that represent the Fortify severity markings from critical going down to low. Now, if we select any of the desired issues, it'll take us directly to the line of code as it's highlighted here, but you'll see that it gives us, again, a quick description of the issue, gives us a location to the file, and also the actual line of code where that issue exists. If I right click on this issue, I'm able to get additional vulnerability details where we have a tab pop up, giving us more of a detailed description on why this is relevant and also recommendations of potential fixes. So as I take a look at this, it's a cookie security where it requires us to set our cookies to true. So I'll go ahead and close this out real quick. And since we're on that line, we have the HTTP only cookie set to false. I'll go ahead and set that to true, resolving this issue. And I'll go ahead and take a look at any of the other vulnerabilities that have been listed, apply my fixes, and once I'm done, I will be able to just run that quick one-line scan to ensure everything's clean. But as I code in again, if I code additional issues, those issues will pop up in real time. Now, as mentioned, this is doing a subset of the checks, but in order for us to run that full comprehensive scan across all vulnerability categories, utilizing also the different analyzers that are available within the Fortify toolset, then we would need to come into the Extensions tab. Under that Fortify um, section, we will be able to analyze that solution fully. Now, if it's a solution that has multiple projects, we're able to select the desired project and scan that project alone. Now, with the example I have here, it's just a solution with a single project, so I can utilize either option to run our scans. Now, once that scan is complete, the results will be published within the Visual Studio UI, very similar to what I'm showing over at the top right of the screen, and that user is able to review the results. Now, If we take a look at the plugin that's provided with Fortify, you would see that there are also additional options like being able to generate reporting directly from the pipeline, sorry, directly from the IDE, and also being able to connect to Software Security Center, which is um, I would say a dashboard tool that provides visibility into the results, and it also provides a collaborative audit to your full team. Because once your scanning is integrated, let's use an example and say it's integrated into your CI pipeline. Once each scan's done, results are automatically pushed into that tool, and rather than users going into the tool UI to connect to it, they're able to come into their IDE, click on the Software Security Center connection, authenticate with their user credentials, and they will be able to select the desired project. So if they're restricted to certain projects within the tool, they will be able to select that and open up the results locally within the IDE. Now, this would be vastly different from if you run a scan locally on the machine, you would have the results over on the top right. But if you connect to SSC, where the results are made available to everyone, then via the plugin, we have the results populate right at the bottom. So if I go ahead and take out the admin filter, I will be able to see all those issues. Now, before we spend time reviewing the results, let's go ahead and take a look quickly at what the Azure DevOps plugin looks like within the tool. Now for this, I'll go ahead and switch to my Azure DevOps instance. And let's just go ahead and connect to the same webgo.net version. And I'll quickly jump into this pipeline here. Now, when we take a look at this, the pipeline that I'm displaying on screen is utilizing more of, I would say, the classic editor. So if I'm looking to add attacks to this pipeline, I click on the plus sign, do a quick search for Fortify here. It pulls up the relevant Fortify options. And the option I need for today is the static code analyzer, but you will see that there are other options and it's fully dependent on what you're entitled to. So if you utilize our cloud-based solution, you would see that there are entitlements for the on-demand static and dynamic. And also, if you utilize our on-premise dynamic assessments, there's an add-on for a web inspect dynamic assessment. But for today, we will be utilizing the static code analyzer assessment. And when I add that to my tags, it will be the exact same as this run Fortify on that I previously customized. So right on the top here, you would see is the Fortify static code analyzer assessment. Now, if you do not utilize the classic editor, you utilize the YAML pipeline, the workflow is very similar. Because when you go into the YAML pipeline, like I have on my screen here, you would see that over on the right is the ability to go ahead and add that tax. So again, I will do a search for Fortify. The various options are available depending on what I am entitled to. If I go ahead and select the static code assessment, the same UI pops up over on the left where I put in the relevant inputs for all these attributes. And once I'm done, once I click on add over at the bottom, it's going to add these as a pipeline syntax to my task here. So let's go ahead and flip back quickly into the classic pipeline. And as you can see, with this steps already pre-configured, I've selected a build ID. I've enabled options to run a clean, a translate, and a scan, which are the three steps needed for Fortify to run a scan against your application. And for the scan step, I have a couple of options where I can choose to run the scan locally on the build agent assigned to this Azure DevOps instance, or I can choose to utilize the Scan Central option where it's going to package up the translated files into a local scan farm that's available in the client's environment. And it enables you offload the scanning chores rather than putting it on the build agent. It's going to take it to a dedicated scanning machine that's local within your environment. the workflow is still the same because once the scanning completes on that scanning machine, the results will be pushed into Software Security Center for visibility to your team. Now, you can have this as this original static code analyzer assessment, or you can utilize an assessment a task that's dedicated solely to the Scan Central capabilities. And right here, I have the Fortify Scan Central static assessment. Once you add that again to your pipeline, it will be similar to what I have pre-configured previously. You're creating tokens to authenticate into your Scan Central instance, also to the Fortify database, and you're selecting an application and version where you would need the results to be pushed into. Now, for this example I have here, you have the option to set a build failure criteria. That's also available on the previous tax. Um, and the benefit here is if you're looking to set a gate, you're able to set gates with metrics like if critical issues are identified, you can either choose to fail the build or you can choose to provide a warning. With the example I have here, either critical or high issue is identified. Let's go ahead and just provide a warning rather than fail. And I've selected a pull frequency of 1, so it's always able to check to make sure that my scan is complete, so it's able to query the results. But as I mentioned, once the scanning is done successfully, you have results published within Software Security Center for visibility. Now, when we take a look at the pipeline, since the Fortify step is added as a tax within your pipeline, it doesn't disrupt um, your build capabilities in any way. So whatever triggers you'll have in place would be the triggers that would be utilized to run the build, which in turn would add a security scan as part of the pipeline. And a good way for us not to disrupt that pipeline would be to utilize the Scan Central options where we are offloading the scan to a scan farm that's local in your environment. So as we've taken a look at these options, let's just go ahead and assume that we've had successful scans done. Let's go ahead and review the results first within the IDE. Then we can go ahead and take a look at this in Software Security Center. And if time permits, we can also review the results in our Audit Workbench tool, which is a native GUI that's provided by Fortify. So I'm pulling my Visual Studio instance up again. Now, let's use the example that we ran a local scan by initiating it utilizing the Analyze solution or project here. Once that scan is complete, results are published to the right of the screen. Now, by default, the results published are in a quick view where we would want to show the most critical issues that need to be addressed first. Now, if you would like to take a look at all issues identified, just flip into the security auditor view and you'll be able to take a look at the full raw results. Now, in addition to the different views that are available, the issues are categorized based on severity from critical to low. Then additionally, you're also able to group by a ton of attributes. So if you're looking to map based off of certain compliances, let's go ahead and say you would want to map based off of the CWE top 25. We can map out to those by default without customizations needed on your end. If you're mapping based on GDPR requirements, based off of the OS top 10, if these application deals with PCI, then we can map to either PCI DSS or SSF, or for our federal clients, we provide mappings to stake. But there are also different attributes here, like the NIST A800 Ref 5, MISRA, and all are available within our mappings here. But let me flip this back to the category view, where we can take a look at the vulnerability categories themselves. Now, as I go ahead and I expand into any of the issues here, I'll select the first as an example. And when I do that, you will see first, since this is catalog.aspx.cx23, it's first taken us to that line of code, the 2023 line of code, which is where the issue is executed. Now, over at the bottom, you would see that we are provided a detailed analysis trace, basically showing the different paths taken to execution as that vulnerability moves through the application. If I go ahead and take a look at the tabs that are available at the bottom, you would notice that I have a couple of options here. First, on the details is a detailed summary where we're bringing in methods and functions and also highlighting line of code of this issue that's been identified. Now, if we take a look at the diagram section, we will see a visual representation of these analysis trays here. And as we go ahead and click on each step, it takes us again to the desired lines of code. So showing us the different parts again to execution. Now, if we quickly flip to recommendations, then we have tips and tricks on how to resolve the issues. And right below, we'll also have references to other organizations and consortiums for best practices. So as we go ahead and review this issue that's provided to us, if we're looking to start our remediation efforts here, then a couple of options are made available. I can go ahead and let's say upon review, I deem this to be a non-issue. I can quickly go in and just suppress the issue here. Or I can choose to create a filter, and as part of the filter, I am able to select similar issues to where if it's a cross-site scripting assistant that shares the same sync, let's go ahead and hide, which is another form of suppression. Or if I would want, I can also downgrade the severity level from a critical going to low, mainly because let's use the example and say we have measures in place that help mitigate this, so it's not necessarily a critical one. I can go ahead and change the severity level down to like a medium or a low level issue. Now, also, if I take a look at the audit section, you would see that I'm able to add tags. So upon my review, I can flag this as a non-issue, or I can potentially flag this as an exploit. And I also have the option to suppress here. I can put in notes and comments, and I can choose to integrate with a defect tracker and have a single bug ticket be created into like my Jira instance or my Azure boards instance or any other defect tracker that's being utilized by my organization. Now, as mentioned previously, there is the ability within the tool set again to um, generate reports just based off of the scan data here that's provided. But one thing again that I'd like to say is since we ran a local scan on our machine, a ton of the changes that are made here are local within this machine. Now I have the option to go ahead and upload all my findings into Software Security Center, providing the data to the greater team. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the other example where scanning is done as part of our CI pipelines and it's done on a continuous manner to where results are now being published for each scan within Software Security Center, then developers are able to come into the IDE here, and from the IDE, they can build a connection directly into Software Security Center. Now, access into Software Security Center is role-based. Since I am logging in as an admin, I can view all applications that have been onboarded in. But if I'm a restricted user assigned to certain applications, only those apps would pop up. So once I go ahead and log in, by default, it's going to show those apps that have been assigned to me. Now, since I'm an admin, nothing is necessarily assigned to the admin, so I'll go ahead and uncheck that filter. And now you would see that I'm able to view all issues. So I can flip into the critical folder to take a look at those critical, high, medium, or low level issues. Very similar, I can expand into each one of them. And as I do, I'll notice the multi-tabbed environment that has been made available. I will be able to get the same detailed summary that I showed previously. I would be able to take a look at recommendations with tips and tricks and also references for best practices. On the audit section, I will be able to assign to different users or I will be able to claim if it's an issue that I would want to work on. I'm also able to set the same analysis tag, either marking it as an exploit or as a non-issue. I will be able to view the analysis trace of these issues and again, similar, take into the desired lines of code, even though I am pulling in the results from Software Security Center. And if needed upon review, I have the ability to suppress the issue. Now, all the changes I make via this connection will be updated in my software security instance. It's available to everyone that has access to that software security, and that's where the collaborative audit comes into, where we ensure there's no duplication of efforts to where multiple people are working on the same issue. So a huge benefit there to clients. Now, another tool set that we provide to our clients is a native GUI that we call Audit Workbench. Now, with Audit Workbench, an if an unsupported IDE or maybe an IDE isn't utilized, but you would need an IDE like GUI to integrate or to not integrate, but I would say communicate with the tool set, then we provide more of a GUI called Audit Workbench with about the same view, but focusing more on the result itself. You'll see the same features and functions in terms of the security auditor view, the ability to view the issues, the analysis trace, snippets of affected areas of your code base. You're able to look at the detailed summary, you get recommendations, and also, again, a visual representation of that code, but just a different GUI that's made available if there isn't a standardized IDE utilized within the organization. The same functionality, again, I'm showing within Visual Studio is available within Eclipse. It's also available within IntelliJ and Visual Studio Code. Okay, so we've taken a look at the issues within the IDE platform. Let's go ahead and quickly jump into taking a look at this from the software security standpoint. Now for this, I'll go ahead and pull up my instance of Software Security Center. Again, I will be logging in more as an admin and would be able to view all apps that have been onboarded in. Now I can quickly see number of files scanned, get info in terms of lines of code, open issues versus bug density and all. Now, with Software Security Center, you have the ability to view not just your static results, but also your dynamic and open source result sets. So, to get more information about these defined applications, we can go ahead and take a deep dive into one of them. And once we do this, you would see that we're able to take a look at these issues first in their respective vulnerability or their severity levels. We're also able to group very similar to what was available within the IDE. So if we're grouping by best practices or by any other attributes we have within the tool, we can we can potentially filter down and start our remediation based off of those requirements associated with either of those best practices or attributes. In addition to this, there are options to filter um, based off of tags that have been put in or based off of, I would say, if it's a static scan versus an open source scan or by the potential vulnerability categories if needed. Now, if we go ahead and expand into any of the issues listed here, as we go ahead and select each one, you would see that we're also provided with snippets of affected areas of the code base. Depending on the issue and its complexity, we will have access to an analysis trace. If I go ahead and expand the options over on the right, you would see that under the info section, we'll have access to a detailed summary. We'll also have access to recommendations where tips and tricks for remediating the issues are provided. Now, if we would want to take a look at some of the high issues, we can add those filters in also. Same applies to the medium and the low level issues. So again, expanding into the info tab here provides access to additional information for the vulnerability. Now, under the auditor status, I am able to assign this to multiple users depending on my role, or change the analysis tag if I deem this as a non-issue versus one that is suspicious or one that is a true exploit. Right above, we have the ability to suppress this issue if seen as a non-issue. There's also the ability to file a bug. So if we have this integrated to a defect tracker, then we're able to come in, authenticate to one of those defect tracking tool sets. I'll just go ahead and log in real quick. With this, I built a connection into my Jira instance. I'll go ahead and select a Jira project here. For issue type, I'll just go ahead and put in this is a bug. The other components here are not required, so I'll just go ahead and skip them. But since I've authenticated in, once I go ahead and click and submit, it's going to push in this as a single bug ticket into my Jira instance. So now when I go into Jira to view this issue, I will be able to maintain um, I would be able to maintain one bug state management. So whatever changes are made there are updated within the tool set here. But you would now see that that file a bug has changed now to either clear the bug link or view the bug. So if I select view the bug, it'll take me directly into the Jira instance to that bug ticket that I created. It's providing a summary. It'll also provide recommendations right after the summary because we have the issue recommendations here. And over at the top here, there's a link back into Software Security Center if I need to see additional details of this issue. Now, one of the things that our clients are able to leverage, they're able to leverage a predictive analytics tool within Software Security Center called Audit Assistant. And the Audit Assistant tool here is made available to where once your scan is complete, it's able to add predictions to those issues that have been identified. So you can see all these issues here, in as much as Fortify has identified them as high, we applied a predictive analytics tag, and that, based on historical data, is able to identify issues either as exploitable, as suspicious, or as non-issues. So if I were to go in and add an Audit Assistant prediction breakdown, you would see that it's able to say we have 54 exploits of these issues. We have 13 that are below the exploitable threshold, which are termed as suspicious. We have 4 that are marked as non-issues, 3 below the threshold for non-issues, and we have 46 that haven't been predicted. But it's able to provide more of a mapping and more of guidance on those issues to focus on first, basically providing remediation guidance. So I can come in and say, let's take a look at those that have been predicted as potential exploits. I can start my remediation efforts here and build on this as I look to others, other predictions within the tool set. Okay, real quick, before we go ahead and end the presentation today, as I mentioned previously, there is the ability to have reports generated within the IDE. There is also the ability to generate the same reports within the Software Security Center tool. All you need to do is go to the Reports tab, select um, Generate a Report. There are 3 sections of reports. One would be your application reports, where we provide more of a high-level application summary. You have your issue reports that provide more of mappings to compliances or a good comprehensive summary of your scan. And the other would be the portfolio reports, providing things like KPIs and trends based off of the settings um, that have been made within the Software Security Center toolset. Now, if we were to go ahead and generate the same reports within the IDE, we'll go into the plugin, click on Generate BERT Report, just go ahead and click and save here. And when we take a look at the templates, there's the ability to generate reports for certain compliances, or also the developer workbook, which is more of a comprehensive summary of the scan. And real quick, go ahead and pull up some sample reports here. Let's go ahead and minimize this real quick. So over on the screen, I have a quick sample of the developer workbook generated. You would see, for starters, we provide more of a high-level exec summary within the tool. Then it provides breakdowns for the issues that's been provided before we go ahead and go into details for each one of the issues identified. But also, please remember that you're able to invite users into the Fortify Software Security Center platform, provide them access, assign issues to them, and they're able to review the issues within the toolset rather than the PDF reports. So multiple ways to have issues distributed to the greater team. I had also highlighted how that can be done via a defect tracker of your choice. We support Jira, Mozilla, Azure Boards, ServiceNow also within the platform. So please feel free to reach out to your Fortify team members for additional information on any of the projects that we've provided today. Thank you so much and have a great day.